Eddie, how excited were you to see Indiana Jones, this latest one?
I've been pretty excited. I want to say it was.
You let yourself get excited.
The second or third most anticipated movie of the summer. Like the movies I'm most excited for this summer have been this one, Mission Impossible,
of course,
and Oppenheimer. Like those are the ones where I'm like, it's on the calendar. I've asked my wife to like go have, time in the movies. And so I was getting excited, and then it's been that Disney Lucasfilm tango of no, don't get too excited. Ooh, but you're luring me in. Oh, that's a go. Nope. I'm not going to be tempted by your sultry moves here. And then, no, I'm excited. Is this it? So that's been the tango for, I would say, the past 6 months. And then I went into this going, I don't think this is going to be good. Like, I just don't think. Like, I heard a couple things here and there that they were going to be super agenda pushy. I'm like, I'm just not going to get excited. And so I went into it, I think, with good tempered expectations.
Me too. So I was in the same spot, low expectations. I think maybe did it premiere at Cannes or something like that, and it like
yes
they didn't get like a standing ovation or anything like that. Like they didn't get any. There wasn't much buzz about it, so I kind of said, oh, maybe this will be low, and maybe it just helps us. We had a better experience with Elemental because we lowered our expectations, although we decried that movie quite a bit. Had low expectations for this one as well.
And I gotta say, I really liked this movie. And a part, I think, was because I went into it with such low expectations. I was like kind of surprised by like a lot of things in it. There was the whole time, like, again, as I'm watching it, I felt that feeling that I have felt for the past 6 months of like, no, Eddie, even as the movie's going on, I'm like, don't get excited. They're going to ruin this. There's going to be some weird, freaky alien thing happen at the end, I got to say, beginning to end, I really enjoyed this movie. It's not going to be like my favorite Indiana Jones of all time. We're going to rank our 5 here soon. But I really enjoyed it, especially like the opening sequence with the train and his escape there. I thought even like the de-aging effects that they put on Harrison Ford looked fine to me. Like it didn't bother me. I think some of the other de-aging things like just felt kind of weird and creepy to me. I don't know about you, but for me, it felt really fine and normal. That's just kind of like my quick reaction is I enjoyed it. I thought that this was a much better conclusion to the Indiana Jones franchise than Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. Like that's no question asked for me on that one. But I really enjoyed it. Did you enjoy this or no?
I came in with low expectations, was a little worried, and I enjoyed it. I had fun. There's a popcorn. It was like more than a popcorn flick because popcorn thing makes you think turn off your brain. This definitely doesn't have turn off your brain. This is like, ooh, where are they going with this? Honestly, it had a lot of vibes from National Treasure. Like some of the same things that we love about National Treasure. This kind of had that in there as well. Especially when they get to like trying to solve the puzzle of when she's walking around the boat, like walking through the puzzle that they've pulled out of the ocean. Then they like melt the puzzle and then there's something inside it. Like they had a lot of fun elements like that to this. It wasn't all that. Like National Treasure is its own thing. It kind of mixed and borrowed from some of those, but for sure the best parts of this film, one of which is just the action. The action of this all feels really, really good, really strong, really fun at times.
And propels the story. I didn't feel like any of the action was unnecessary.
It wasn't Michael Bay action, just random hot dog cart exploding. Yeah.
Right.
I also felt like the cinematography from the very first trailer I've seen of this, it felt like every shot looked beautiful. Even if some of the things were dark and moody, and like anything underwater nowadays just is going to be dark and like hard to tell what's going on. But
right.
All of it looked cinematic. It looked very beautiful. The shots and the lighting and the way that they compose things, it's all very intentional and great. So I felt like they maybe were trying very, very hard to live up to Steven Spielberg, who did the first ones of this. I thought it was done really.
I heard a reviewer say that this one was more Spielberg-esque than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
I think I don't remember a lot from the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, so I can't really tell you. But
he definitely has Spielberg has a way and a style of introducing characters, of framing the characters, of pacing. Like this, I think the scene on the boat when she's solving the riddle is a really good example of that, of just how he paces the movement of thinking, of people processing information. Spielberg has a way of blocking that out that just really comes alive. And this is not Spielberg. This is James Mangold. And yeah, there's sequences where you would wonder, like, are you sure Spielberg didn't do this? Because it does feel like it.
They definitely used a really good director for this, James Mangold. He's done 2 Wolverine movies, Ford versus Ferrari, which was an Oscar movie a couple of years ago. He's going to be doing one of the new Star Wars films, Dawn of the Jedi, which I'm super excited about. So that was a really good choice for this.
He's announced for doing one of the new Star Wars films. JB
announced. Who knows? This time next year, who knows who will be directing that, and even if anybody's still attached to it. The other thing I want to call out in here, this was my first movie or show anything to watch Phoebe Waller-Bridge. She is an Emmy Award winning actress. She also is the showrunner, creator of the show Fleabag. It's a UK show that went on to win some Emmy Awards. This is my first experience seeing her in anything, and there was a little bit of a catching up for me to get of like figuring out her way of talking and being, and it's a little bit different than other actresses. But by the time it ended, I really enjoyed her arc throughout this. You know that they're going to get tighter by the end of this, but even just where they start, where she's like conning him, to the very end where she's like, we're doing spoilers already on this, but it's like saving his life. Like I didn't feel like they had jumped a bunch of steps. It felt like they had been through something together. They had grown together. And then by the end, and even some of the reasons why she got into doing this, like she was kind of an abandoned child. Like she didn't have her dad anymore. He had gone crazy. Her godfather had kind of abandoned her as well. Left her. Like it kind of was earned, and it kind of made sense. And you also just kind of like her. I just kind of like her character, and she's not overbearing. She's not mean spirited. She's just got her own agenda going on. And I kind of got it and felt it. And I was good. I enjoyed her arc throughout this and their relational arc throughout this story.
So I would agree. I liked her arc. I guess where I would push back is I would say the beginning, especially when you're in where is it, Tangier with her, and like she's selling off the artifact. I did not like her. I thought she was annoying. And it like there was a good like especially in the race, like going through the city scene, she's just kind of like snipping at him and has all these lines, and it's just kind of like, it felt, I was just waiting for her to be like, okay, boomer, you know, like it was very Karen-esque at moments for me.
I didn't think it crossed that line.
And in my mind, I'm going, if this whole movie is her like this, I don't think I can handle this. Because it's like, don't belittle Indiana Jones here. Like, this is one of the most beloved characters in all of film history. But I agree with you. I like the arc. There is this moment where you see her really switch. And I want to say the moment is the scene on the boat when she's solving the puzzle, hands, the dynamite over to Indy. That whole sequence is when that really began to turn for me. And by the end, you're right. Like when she takes the kids out for ice cream at the end, it's like, okay, I like this character. And I like that I didn't like her at the beginning, that we got a full arc with her and that it felt complete.
Yeah, so she was definitely one of the highlights of this film for me. I would disagree with you on the whole CGI. It didn't impair it completely. I still enjoyed those opening sequences with on the train and stuff. But at this point, like, I know we've had him in older films. So that's kind of why we're trying to do the de-aging process instead of hiring a younger actor to do that. And maybe they don't want a solo event to happen for this. But At the same time, I'm like, I know it's CGI and I can look at his face and it's not quite right. Like they can get it as good as they want to. And I don't know why, maybe like Luke Skywalker, I didn't have as big of a problem when we had him in those Boba Fett episodes. Those were amazing. I just don't know why. I think there's a problem is like, why did we have to do this at all? Why can't we just get younger actors for this? Come on.
Yeah. And I mean, I
but you didn't have the same experience.
No, for me, I knew it was that. And I guess my first response when like they shine the light on his face after they pull the hood off, I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. That looks really good. But I mean, my mind immediately is thinking, I know this isn't real.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the point I'm trying to make. For you, you were like, oh, that's not real. And then you move on.
But it's pretty good. And then I moved on.
I thought it was good. Like whatever they did was good. But also my brain's like, but that's not what he looks like now.
Yeah.
Like that's not at all what he looks like now. And they're trying to make him look like what he looks like now. And it's just like, this is fake. It was like my brain was like, this is fake. This is fake. This is fake. I don't know. That was maybe it's because
I took more issue with some of the fake CG like landscapes. There's like a moment where they like look up at the Alps or something like that. It's like obviously really, really fake. The old Sicily stuff, like obviously fake. Like, and I think that pulls me out more than anything. Especially an Indiana Jones movie where, I mean, you go back to Raiders and Spielberg has these beautiful shots in the desert with, the sun lighting behind and giving this perfect silhouette of Indiana Jones. Like that's the standard and that's film from the 80s. And it, to me, still looks better than this weird CG painted landscape that you're putting into, even this movie. So that's where my beefs with the CG comes from is with that. But in that opening sequence, I just thought it was a really fun ride. It was a compelling enough of a narrative and a sequence that I forgot about it and I just enjoyed the ride.
I thought Mads Mikkelsen, he's always a good go-to bad guy, and he's a Nazi. Easy win there.
But can we stop there for a second? Like for me, that was the highlight. Like I thought Mads was arguably my favorite in the whole film.
What? Wow.
I just thought it was a really good, strong character. Also, like we've been griping on here forever. Like I just want a really good bad guy. Like I just want a bad guy who's bad. And hey, we got it, And of course, you got to drum up the old cliche of he's a Nazi because those are the really only bad guys. But
it's less cliche than it's just a part of the canon of if it's going to be an Indiana Jones, there has to be a Nazi.
Yes. So I really liked that. I thought that for him, his character was so good. I really enjoyed it.
How much did you love them tying it into the astronaut moon landing?
Oh, yes.
Moon Day. Are you celebrating?
Yes.
Do you celebrate Moon Day July 20th every year, Eddie?
I do not celebrate Moon Day.
You're going to this year, though. You're going to think about it. I'm going to text you.
Well, I celebrated it a few years ago when it was the 50th anniversary, and they did like all of the big things where they like projected on the Washington Monument and stuff. That was cool. If you haven't seen video of that, where they 3D projected the Saturn V rocket on the Washington Monument, you should YouTube that when we're off here. Because it's pretty sweet. It's pretty cool. So that's the only time I've ever celebrated. But I thought that was cool. I was trying to explain this to somebody. I brought somebody to the movie with me who'd never seen any Indiana Jones movies. And I was really nervous because I'm like, this is such a great franchise. I'm nervous this being your first one and this being ruin it. But it was just kind of like, yeah, let's go for it. He ended up really enjoying it. He wants to watch the other movies. We're going to do that.
This is a good one to do that with. If you haven't ever seen an Indiana Jones film, this is a good one to see because there's really not any callbacks. There's not like crazy, they brought back the bad guy from the first one. They didn't do any of that kind of stuff.
So, it's Salah, he comes back, but I think if you don't know him from the other movies, you don't need to know. He's just a friend.
The hat, the whip, that's about it.
Yeah. And there's a few scenes like the very end when
that's right.
He and Marion. She's doing the kisses on the
elbow. But they do enough to like she could have been just an everyday wife that he just they're going through a divorce or whatever, and they've got her photo on the wall. That's fine.
I thought speaking of how connecting to other movies, the way they killed off Shia LaBeouf, but making it like a significant element of the story.
So this is where my complete lack of knowledge of the Crystal Skull. He was his son?
Yes. Mud Williams, I think was his name. That he was his son. And so everybody is like, oh, please don't bring back his character. Like it was trying way too hard. And so like killing him, movies do this all the time where they just like kill off the character they don't want to bring into the next movie and nobody talks about it. Like it's just a throwaway line. I can't think of another example where like they make it a significant character moment
without them being there. Yeah.
Without him being there, I'm like, whoa, good writing. Like whoever came up with that being the emotional beat. And that scene with Harrison Ford on the boat where he's talking about going back to that moment. So emotional. Like, oh, yeah. Like Harrison Ford isn't Harrison Ford just because he's, a great action star or whatever. No, he's like a really great actor and he shows it in this
Very
moment.
Emotional in that. Yeah, 100%. We got to talk about the ending, the meeting Archimedes. Did it go too far? Them literally flying into the past and meeting Archimedes, seeing the whole battle, the battle in Sicily, or I guess Syracuse. Was it too much? Too weird?
And for me, like when it first happened and you look out the plane window and you realize what's going on, I was like, whoa, okay, that's cool. It started to get a little weird when like Archimedes is there and Harrison Ford or Indiana Jones is thinking about staying.
Yep.
Like the whole time I'm going, no. You can't have him stay. Like you can't have him stay. You can't do that. And so like as I'm walking out of the theater, it had just a little bit of a weird taste in my mouth. But I stopped for a second and I went, hold on. In Indiana Jones, we've had the angel of death fly out of the Ark of the Covenant and consume people.
Yep. We've
had them rip a beating heart out of people and lower them into flames. We've had, a knight survive from the Crusades and water heal them. We've had aliens, all coming together. Yep. Like, okay, this works for this franchise. Like, it actually, I don't think it would have been an Indiana Jones movie if it hadn't come up to that moment.
You're right. That's what I was doing. The mental gymnastics in my head as it was happening. I was like, wait, we've had aliens. We've had other crazy things in biblical proportions happening.
Literally.
I think this is okay. And I started getting uneasy when I thought they were going to leave him in history. And it's like, this is weird. I mean, it kind of is serendipitous of like a guy who spends all his time talking and preserving things from the past now gets to live in the past. But when she's like, I've watched enough movies, like basically she didn't say this, but I've watched enough movies to know you can't jack with the past. If we do this, it'll change history. Punches him and knocks him out. Although I don't know how he goes from knocked out there all the way back to his apartment in New York City. That's
but
weird.
I kind of
that was dumb.
Oh, see, I disagree. I really liked that because I sat there in that moment going, we went through so much of the dial and everything to get back. I don't want to retread that in the getting back. I liked the beat. For me, like my favorite moment was boom, she punches him to knock him out.
Me too.
That's an Indiana Jones moment. I like that.
I like that. I like that as well. I'm saying I
don't want to know. I like the like, okay, yeah, they used the dial and they got back through. Okay, yep, that's how that works. Okay.
I'm still asking myself though, how did he get in his bed? Like, was he unconscious that entire trip? Like, it'd be different to go like
they injected him with something. Who knows? They pumped him full of morphine.
I'm sorry, but that's just where my brain went. It was just like, wait, how did he get into his bed? And he's in a sling, and evidently he's had a medical procedure, and he's fine, but he's just now waking up, but he doesn't have other questions. And how did I get here? What happened? Where did he go? Archimedes. I don't know. It was kind of funny, but no, the punch was great. Like where there's like, no, we're not going to do this. Great. Yes, this is exactly where he need to come home and deal with his stuff. But it kind of left the door open. Like, could we see him in another one? But he's literally said this is his last one, right?
Yes. The last 10 minutes of this movie for me were perfect. This is how you want an Indiana Jones movie to end. And I would say for the way Harrison delivers those last 10 minutes are soul crushing, but also like breathing excitement and hope into you, right? That moment when he sits down and they kind of rehash everything and you can see in his eyes like why he wanted to stay because he had no reason to come back here. And when he asked that question of like, but for who? But for who? Like his look on his face when he says that, like, I almost cried. Like that was so gut wrenching of like, yeah, like I've sat there with so many people in that age of life where so many people have died. So many friends are no longer there. They start to lose that will to stick around. And you see that there on his face. And then, of course, for Miriam to walk back through the door. And it was like, of course. You need Marion Ravenwood. Like, she's his reason. And for it to, like, come together and tie up nicely like that. And then to pull the hat off the line at the very end. I don't think there's going to be another. Of course not. But I like that you had that moment because there's this little seed in your mind of, like, Indy is still out on an adventure. And as long as like Indy is still out on an adventure, I can still go out on an adventure.
My other gripe that I had was, did nobody think to check the other half of the ship this whole time? It's not like it was down that far. You could see the light of the sky coming in. Why did nobody thought to check the other half of the ship this whole like, thousands of years?
They were afraid of eels.
Come on. I did like the connection between the eels and snakes. I was like, oh, I see what Clever. You did there. They didn't have any like cuts on them though, somehow, after all those eel fights and bites and scrapes and stuff like that. That was kind of odd.
Yeah, and I like that you had the like going through the tight corridors and all the creepy crawly bugs are falling on them. You know, the cave sequence of solving all those things, very puzzle. Like you just pulled on some really great, you know, storytelling levers that in many ways, yeah, we reference, you know, something like National Treasure, others, but it was Indiana Jones who created this kind of genre for movies. So it felt good to kind of go back. In many ways, it's like when you watch an Agatha Christie, or if you've ever even seen an Agatha Christie play, it almost feels campy. It feels like it's making fun of the genre, but it's because she created it. And then everything else that has like come back, like they're just mimicking that. So there are definitely some moments in this where I'm going, no, actually, this is the franchise that created all of this for us.
So she can do it because she's the OG.
Yes.
Indiana Jones, the OG.
I think we've come to the moment where we need to give our ranking. This is the last Indiana Jones movie. There are 5. The very first is not Indiana Jones. It's just called Raiders of the Lost Ark. People have got to remember that. That's why if you ever hear an interview with Steven Spielberg, he never calls these the Indiana Jones movies. He calls them the Raiders movies. I always think that's interesting if you listen to him. So you have Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom. Then you have The Last Crusade. We jump forward quite a few decades and we hit the Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. And then what we've just been talking about, the Dial of Destiny. JB, I propose we go from 5 to 1. What is your number 5?
My number 5 is the movie that I still don't remember anything about. I've alluded to it already, but I sat down to watch this for the first time at somebody's home. They turned it on, and 20 minutes into this film, I fell asleep. And it was middle of the afternoon. So it was that boring, that bad. And I've never tried to watch it ever since, AKA why I didn't even know that he was Indiana Jones's son, because I didn't know because I fell asleep in it. So Crystal Skull is going to get my number 5.
I would agree. Kingdom of Crystal Skull is number 5 for me. With that being said, the opening sequence, like the first 5 minutes or so, is really good classic Indiana Jones, and I really like it, but nothing else in this movie holds up for me. So number 5 is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Number 4. Number
4 for me is actually going to be Temple of Doom. It's a really weird movie to me. The heart for sure, all of the tribal things, it's by far my least favorite. It is not an enjoyable movie to me. I do not like sitting watching this film. It's weird, awkward, a lot of satanic ritual stuff in it that just rubs me the wrong way, and demons and souls and all kinds of stuff. So for that, I have it number 4 because it just was one of the least enjoyable of all the movies to watch.
My number 4 is this one, The Dial of Destiny. I really like it. But for me, it doesn't come close to the original 3. Still strong. But yeah, it's number 4 for me because the original 3 are just too strong for me.
You'll have to get some, when we get to Temple of Doom, you can then refute me of why it's better than this movie, because I had this movie at number 3, Dial of Destiny, because I just had a lot of fun times watching this. I've got the other ones higher up on there for sentimental reasons, but Dial of Destiny, it was a great ride. It was better than I thought it would going to be, and so that's why I kind of put it in the middle of the pack here, because the last 2 just were absolute train wrecks for me that I just did not care about. So Dial of Destiny is my number 3.
My number 3 this is going to be controversial, but here it is. It is actually the original Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Do tell.
I love it. In many ways, I would say Raiders is a perfect movie. It comes down to it. I like the other 2 more.
What do you
like? I just enjoy the ride of. I love the ride on the other ones just a little bit more. But I mean, you've got to hear me when I say this. This is one of the hardest rankings. I am splitting hairs putting these.
You had more of your childhood wrapped up in Indiana Jones, a lot more than I did, I would say.
I watched these 3 movies on a regular basis,
and I didn't watch these nearly as much. We'll get to my origin for the Raiders of the Lost Ark when I watch it, when I get to that one. But yeah, you've had a lot more time to chew on this than I have. This was more of an adult time, in the adult stage of my life, going back and just catching up and watching them.
Yeah. So what is your number 2?
My number 2, I'm going to go with Last Crusade, partially because I have used this phrase more than anything, probably in any movie phrase that I've ever watched in my life. This is probably the one I quote more than anything. Although snip, snap, sip, snap has come up a lot recently for me from The Office. But Last Crusade, when he says, "You have chosen poorly." I have used that so many times. It's not even funny how many times. So I love Sean Connery in this. I love their back and forth, their tango or whatever you want to call it. I think it's a great random choice to have for Indiana Jones's father, like not the first person I would have thought of, like Sean Connery as Harrison Ford's dad, not the person, but it works really well.
Well, there's only 12 years between them. And so they purposely kept Sean Connery like in a gray beard the whole time, and Harrison very clean shaven to kind of help separate that. But they're actually not that far apart in age, only 12 years.
So that's kind of, I love it, but I'm just going to go ahead and do number one. The reason I did number one is just because it's the classic. It's such great action and storytelling from beginning to end. So many iconic moments. Before I saw this movie, the original one, which is my number one, the Raiders movie, I actually read this first. Like our local library had adapted the movie and made it into a book form with like stills from the movie. And
really?
And so I had never watched the movie. I actually read it like a
cool.
narrative. Yeah. So it's it was like a shorter book.
Yeah.
But they had all the moments. You got the snake pit, like Marion, the hand, everything is in it. It's just, you read it instead. And it's kind of like that in that like teenage zone of books. And that's kind of how I came onto the story in the first place. But I think because of that, seeing those like images in my mind, literally images in my mind that were just there with the snake pit and stuff. And of course the rolling boulder, all of those moments together just make this what it is. And one of my favorite stories is that whole, when the guy has the knife and he's wielding it and doing all the things, and then he just shoots him. I love that was the only reason they shot that was because they were supposed to have a big fight and he was sick and he couldn't perform the fight. So he was
tired.
Yeah, he was tired.
Like,
sick.
Can I just shoot him?
And that's what they did. So that I love those little movie making backstories as well. So that's why I know I jumped at 1 and 2, but I had to explain why I chose 2 instead of 1 and stuff.
JB, it's our podcast. We can make up the rules however we want. I will interject before I get to mine. If you've the original, if you go down some YouTube rabbit trails of listening to George Lucas and Steven Spielberg talk about how they created this character and series and like why they did it, it is so much fun. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark was just pure fun for these two guys. Like, they had nothing to prove, nothing to earn here. They're just going, hey, we've arrived in our careers where we can kind of do whatever we want. Let's do whatever we want. And this is what they came up with. And to hear them talk about it is just really fun, especially, two guys that we love their movies so much. It's definitely worth listening to. And I think the bonus features of Kingdom of Crystal Skull is better than the movie itself, because you get some of those conversations from Lucas and Spielberg on all of that. My number 2 is Temple of Doom. This was actually one of my favorite movies as a kid. I think in part because of Short Round. Like, you get you connect well with him as a kid. I love everything from the monkey brains and the weird food scene at the beginning. The whole like,
you loved everything things, I hated. Like, you loved everything I hated.
It was like the voodoo, like even some of the like kind of crazy ritualistic stuff. Like, I remember that like terrifying me as a kid, but like terrifying me in such a way like I couldn't.
It terrified me as an adult.
My eyes away. The mine car chase in that scene, all of that is one of my absolute favorites. I think it is a good old timey, like a good era adventure movie. And I love it. And what you find is like what you said about Temple of Doom doesn't surprise me. A lot of Indiana Jones people feel kind of the same feel the same way and all of that. What's very interesting is Temple of Doom technically is not a sequel, it's a prequel. You go back, it is in the timeline pre-Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay.
You gotta catch that there. But Number one for me, without a doubt, The Last Crusade. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, from beginning to end, for me, perfect movie. Maybe cracks like top 5, top 10 movies of all time for me. I love the opening sequence with young Indiana Jones, played by River Phoenix. That whole sequence, and then how that connects in and kind of leads into it all. Sean Connery, of course, making an appearance and all that. You've got him like stumbling into a book burning in Berlin, and Hitler signs his book. Like little moments like that, I absolutely love. So this movie also got just seared into my head. I had the privilege of actually visiting Petra, the location where the Holy Grail is, quote unquote, in the movie. And yes, I mimicked a galloping horse with my hands and like sang the theme song with a mutual friend of ours, going through there, singing dun 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 dun, because we happen to be the only people there, and quote unquote, rode into the Holy Grail there. So that just kind of like, if it wasn't already, boom, sealed. It is now like my absolute favorite. That movie. And I got to say, one of the things I liked about Dial of Destiny that for me really recalled well back to The Last Crusade is the globetrotting. Both of those movies have a good amount of globetrotting where you kind of go around a lot. And I think for me, one of the things I liked about Dial of Destiny is kind of a recall back to that you've got a good amount of globetrotting and all those, and had I could have used a little bit more of a map sequence. Me and maps. They had a little bit of there in the Dial of Destiny, but that's part of the reason I like The Last Crusade. Is just such great map sequences.
You do love your map sequences. Yeah,
I love my map sequences. So yeah, that's for me. Number 5, Kingdom of Crystal Skull. 4, Dial of Destiny. 3, Raiders of the Lost Ark. 2, Temple of Doom, and number 1, The Last Crusade.
I think we both enjoyed this movie, Eddie. Both you and I, we both enjoyed Dial of Destiny.
I texted my mother and said, "You need to go see this movie."
Was she on the fence?
And she loves Indiana Jones. Like, part of the reason why, like, Mom and I would watch this all the time growing up. She's like, "I don't know. I don't think your dad would enjoy it." I'm like, go grab one of your grandsons. Like, you don't have to go to the movies with dad anymore. You've got grandsons there.
I almost took my son to see this. I thought about doing it, and there's a part of me that maybe could have. I think
he's
a couple too many
at that age.
Yeah, it's just a couple too many longer monologues. He would have no idea about Nazi history and stuff like that. Sure. But I almost took him, and there's a part of me that almost wishes.
Have you shown him any of the old ones?
I haven't yet. It might be that time. Probably not Temple of Doom, but maybe Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think he'd like that.
Did you know Temple of Doom is why we have a PG-13 rating?
Oh, that makes sense.
So quickly, prior to Temple of Doom, we only had PG, and then it jumped up to R. And so they actually rated Temple of Doom PG. And theaters were in outrage because so many kids went into this knowing Raiders. Okay, we're going to get something very similar to Raiders. Oh, and it has a PG rating. And then they're beating hearts out of men's chest, and so kids are running out of theaters screaming and everything. So the rating system created a PG-13. I don't know if it actually went on Temple of Doom, but the very, after that, they started the other category.
Little history nuggets for all of our listeners out there. So yes, go check it out. This is one of the few times that we were telling people, go see it. It's been a while since we've had like hey, you should go watch this. You should go see this, other than if we're just telling
theaters.
People. In theaters. Oh, yeah.
It's
totally
big screen, good sound, totally worth it. Yep.
So that's our review of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.